Welcome everyone. My name is Jo Low and I'm from South Africa. And today we will be discussing the second key point of emotional freedom, happiness and the needs of human beings. So since joining the Chopra Total Health and Wellbeing coaching classes, I started learning about this wonderful ancient wisdom, Ayurveda. And it's an absolute honor for me to be teaching a little piece of this ancient wisdom over to you today. So I'm going to ask that if you have any questions, to please just write them down, make notes, and I'll be happy to discuss them afterward. Now let's begin with the happiness part first. So we all share a desire to be happy, right? But most people believe that the circumstances or the people in their lives have to change before they can finally be happy. And you can raise your hand if your efforts to change people, situations, and events in your life has actually led to some sort of enduring happiness. So from the time that we are small children, most of us are taught to seek happiness from external sources. And this means that from very early on in our lives, we start to identify happiness with our accomplishments, our positions, our titles, and even our possessions. Now this is what's known as the first kind of happiness, and we are all pretty familiar with this one, as it's also known as happiness for a reason, if you will. So you see, trying to find our identity and happiness in our relationships, our work, accomplishments, possessions, it's all known as object referral. So we would say things like, I'm happy because I just got a promotion. I'm happy because I met the love of my life. I'm happy because I've got this wonderful group of friends. Well, I'm happy because I've got the latest iPhone. Now, this ultimately means that we identify with objects outside of ourselves. And by their very nature, these objects are always changing, right? Now, not to wish anybody ill will, but to put things into perspective. That group of friends that was so great and awesome might not be your friends in 10 years from now. The love of your life that you've met might end up in a divorce in 20 years from now. Well, the iPhone is really simple. That can just get lost or stolen in 2 weeks. And then the promotion that you got, well, you might end up without a job or losing that job in 5 years. So fortunately, I've learned this lesson at a very early age of 16, when our house burned down completely. So we were basically left with nothing. Now, even though I had 5 other siblings, I was home alone on that horrific night. But I saw this as a life-changing event. And so this has taught me that from a very young age, as long as we tie our identity to objects outside of ourselves, we will never know our true unlimited self. Now, you may feel happy when things go your way, but we will feel an underlying current of instability or insecurity, or perhaps a part that seems to be missing, because deep down, most of us know that the source of our good feelings can disappear at any moment. So there are many challenges in this type of approach, though. And the first is that no amount of status, power, money, or worldly belongings is capable of satisfying our deepest longing for lasting inner peace. And the second challenge is that even when we do derive some sort of temporary pleasure from these external sources, they are just that, temporary. And they are sure to fade over time, leaving us to experience feelings of sadness, disappointment, or even emptiness. But there's a second kind of happiness, and it's known as true joy. And this is an internal state of awareness that allows us to be happy for no reason at all. It's the opposite of object referral, and it's known as self-referral, which means that we actually identify with our inner self, the unchanging essence of our soul. And so self-referral, because it's an internal state of well-being, doesn't depend on any external circumstances. So it's totally independent of the events, the people, or the things in our lives. Now, because our true self is pure unbounded consciousness, also known as the field of all possibilities. Now, the practices of Ayurveda, including meditation and yoga, just gently guides us to experience this field of consciousness and the happiness that already exists within all of us. And then this reconnection to our source of happiness can then help us lighten the load of past traumas and negative emotional experiences. So we can bring a different perspective to our past experiences that allows us to actually integrate these experiences, heal from them, and then thrive. So now that we've discussed the happiness part of the class, let's take a closer look at our basic human needs. The great American psychologist Abraham Maslow is best known for his theory of the hierarchy of human needs. And so the first level of need is for food, water, oxygen, shelter, and then the protection we need in order to survive. But beyond these essential needs, we have 4 fundamental emotional needs, also known as the 4 A's: attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. Now, all of our emotions really stem from whether our fundamental human needs are met or not, right? So this includes our need for attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. We certainly feel different emotions throughout the day, right? We might feel anxious, fear, nervous, frustrated, or just angry, or we might feel joy, contentment, vibrant, and relaxed. But no matter how you look at it, at the most fundamental level, we have the capacity for only 2 core emotional experiences: comfort or discomfort. So comfort encompasses feelings of contentment, joy, peace, love, and gratitude, where discomfort includes feelings of frustration, distress, anger, fear, and sadness. So when we perceive that our physical and psychological needs are being met from the outside, that's when we feel comfort, right? And that's often when we say, I'm having such a great day, because we might feel accomplished, pleasure, happiness, and contentment. And this is great. However, when we perceive that our needs from the outside are not being met, we feel discomfort. And that's often when we start to feel suffering, distress, sadness, maybe a little edgy or moody, or even down. So the concept that the Buddha spoke about is, suffering is wanting reality to be different than what it is. And so we talked about these emotions, and then when our needs are met and when they are not being met. Well, what happens to our unmet needs? We usually just stuff them inside, right? And again, some of these are emotional intelligence, as we can't really walk around the day at work processing all of our emotions. So a lot of this again is happening in the subconscious mind, but they're still stuffed inside. So someone might have looked at us funny, or someone didn't greet us this morning, or there's no coffee, and whatever happened, things are just off. And so we walk around with a fake smile on our faces. Hey, how are you? I'm doing great. How are you? I'm just doing fantastic. But it sits there, right? And so over time, we can start to have pain in our mind and in our body from all of these stored emotions that has not been metabolized over time. And another saying of the Buddha, which I feel is very appropriate for this class, is feel the feeling, but don't become the emotion. Witness it, allow it, and then release it. Because when we repress or ignore any feelings of discomfort, we may eventually experience anxiety, hostility, or guilt. And I think Chopra says it best in his 21-day meditation of shedding the weight, that we can start experiencing issues in our tissues. So, and this accumulated emotional pain, also known as ama, can lead to more serious illnesses, like depression, for instance. So we already know that from our mind-body types, we can have a dosha propensity to some of these emotions. And again, no matter what our prakriti or dosha type is, we all know that we can have balances or imbalances. But this section we'll cover in the next class though. But I just quickly want to say that it's interesting to see that when we start to think of who we are as it relates to our dosha types, or then again, we can do it from the frame of reference of the observer. And this can be very empowering because the observer, that frame of reference, the conscious observer, is always at peace, right? And so we can start to realize that we are not just this conditioned bundle of emotions, that whatever comes our way we have to react to, but rather we can start to think about that wonderful first soul question of who am I? And so we all have our own answers for that, but really just asking the question and looking at yourself again as a consciousness that's aware of the consciousness, that has this body, that has this mind, but I am not any of those, can be very empowering. So now that we have covered happiness and the needs of human beings, as well as the 2 basic emotional experiences, comfort and discomfort, we move on to the 2 potential responses to unmet needs. So we can either react to unmet needs, which is an instinctual, conditioned and learned behavior, but it's inherently limited. Or we can respond, which basically implies being aware and having infinite, unlimited choices. So the more skilled we become at meeting our needs, the more likely we are able to feel comfortable, happy, and at peace. And the practice of conscious communication and all the other tools we will explore in the next class will help you become more skilled at identifying and meeting your needs. Keep in mind that as social beings, we do have this desire to have our emotional needs met from within our relationships, even though it is object referral. But we can evolve and have our emotional needs met from within, which is self-referral. And as our identity becomes even more aligned with pure consciousness, as opposed to our ego selves, our perception of our needs being met begins to shift. So in closing this class, I would like to reinforce the 4 fundamental emotional needs, the 4 A's: attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance, and that there are only 2 core emotional experiences: comfort or discomfort. So we also only have 2 potential responses to unmet needs, right? So we get to react or respond. And the wonderful thing is we get to choose at the end of the day. So I just loved sharing this tiny part of the ancient wisdom with you today, and I look forward to see you in my next class. Now, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them now. Namaste.